Today we're going over my top 10 overall tips and tricks for Apex Legends that will make you a better player. I tried to order these as to what I think is the most important for you to understand, but as with basically anything, it's always on you, the player, and the specific situation that you might be in. Let's get right to it. The first will absolutely be surprising to some, but it is going to be your movement in Apex Legends, and more specifically, to keep it simple. Honest to God, you really don't need to know crazy amount of stuff to really perform at the top of the game. Sliding, edge sliding, and stowing your guns, it's all you need in Apex. If you can master these three things, which are what I consider the fundamentals of Apex Legends, you're going to be very successful as a player. It can seem very flashy and very cool to do all this pro movement play like you can see your favorite pro players or streamers doing, but in reality, none of that is necessary. These players can only do this because they already have mastered everything else: insane aim, positioning, and game knowledge. If you don't have this, having all these movement tricks is pretty much pointless. If you're not putting your guns down when you are slightly breaching forward to get into a fight, you're not moving as fast as you possibly can, and when milliseconds matter in Apex Legends, you gotta be doing this as much as possible. At minimum when you're rotating, but really in your gunfights, you should be sliding, stowing your weapons, moving forward, then pulling your weapons out and firing, really all at once. Get the basics mastered, and then you can slowly implement other movement as you do go on with Apex Legends. Number 9 is to not play scared. More times than not, a new player, a less experienced player, or a bad player is going to be a little nervous when it does come to taking fights, probably due to their confidence. But if you are playing scared, you're going to be playing in a much different way that really stunts your growth as a player. I want to specifically mention that you need to always be returning fire and applying pressure at enemies. Not doing this is going to allow good players to simply just walk all over you. If I am shooting at a player from a considerable distance away or even closer to them and they are not firing back at me, this pretty much instantly tells me their skill level, and I can more accurately play that engagement to my advantage. It is very easy for anyone that has put in a serious amount of hours in Apex Legends, which is a lot of people at this point since we are 4 years into the game, to really just understand how their enemy is going to perform in the battle that they are about to take. The biggest thing I can recommend to calm your nerves is just to tell yourself you can queue up for another match, so don't sit in the corner while everyone else around you is becoming great. Number 8 is something that should be an extension of your weaponry in Apex Legends. You need to think of it almost as a third gun that you have. And this is going to be your grenade usage. Out of the three, thermites, frag grenades, and arc stars, I do think frag grenades are the most versatile of them all. They do the most raw damage as long as someone's not standing in a thermite. And overall, they can have the most explosive power, literally, to change the way a battle is going. A very close second is going to be arc stars. If you are using arc stars to open a fight with a stick, this can actually be pretty massive if the enemy is not getting away from their teammates. Second to this is that you need to go into the firing range and practice your vert or sky nades. Understanding the various angles and distances to your target and what arc you need to be throwing that grenade at is going to be a huge thing that every player really needs to master. If you don't have positioning, this is a great way to get that high ground positioning. If you know someone is healing or reviving a player behind cover, it also works in this aspect. You should always have a grenade in your bag. It doesn't matter if you have no bag or if you have a gold bag. Grenades are just going to unlock an entire another level of tier or level of success in your game. Moving on, we are going to have none other than armor swapping in Apex Legends. This specific gameplay tactic or technique can probably be number 1 at times as a way to actually make a play happen. Armor swapping your partial empty or your completely empty, say purple armor for a gray armor in a death box, sounds crazy at times, but this is the definitive way to counter third parties and overall extend your ability to simply just survive an engagement. You're going to win a lot more fights if you can understand that every post-fight or even during the middle of a fight, you go into a death box, you rip out that full armor, and you're ready to go to actually outplay your enemy. It needs to be in the back of your mind that every fight you take or every post-fight that you take, you gotta be swapping your armors if anyone is around, and even then, you might want to swap your armor anyway, just in case you do get thirded. Next up is going to be something that is often overlooked and a little forgotten about, and it is going to be the micro game in Apex, and specifically your health management. It's absolutely not talked about enough, but you need to be micromanaging your health by staying healthy literally as often as you can. If you do get hit for, say, 50 shields and you got a little bit of time where no one is actively shooting at you and you're not actively returning fire, you need to be popping a shield cell. You don't necessarily need to heal up to full every single time, but the more frequently you are healing, the more likely you will be able to simply survive. And this kind of goes in tandem with the previous tip of armor swapping. Every heal that you get means that enemy has to simply just do another 25, another 50 damage to you. And if they are not healing up, then you have a massive advantage over them. In this sense, if you're a numbers person, Apex very quickly does become a numbers game. In order to win with the macro of the entire game, you need to be very proficient in the micro. We roll right into the top 5 tips of Apex Legends, and this is to live and die by the third party. If you're not seeing a little connection to everything we have previously talked about, well, you're kind of missing a little bit of the point. Third parties in Apex Legends can create the biggest detriment to your game, but they can also create the biggest opportunity that you can have every single match. If you are wondering just how do you actually capitalize or understand a third party, for starters, if you see people trading in the kill feed and players are getting knocked at the same time the audio of gunfire stops, this is a huge way just to know that those fights are trading players, and you can go in there with a 3-on-2-on-1 or a 3-on-2-on-2 and you will have the advantage. If you are simply wondering how to avoid a third party, it all comes down to monitoring your surroundings. Certain legends like Crypto can better help you know if teams are nearby and whether or not the fight you are about to take is a good one. If you aren't or you don't want to play a legend like Crypto, the second best way is of course the audio. Gunshots in Apex travel about 200 to 450 meters away depending on what you are using. Knowing this little amount of intel means you can use this to your advantage to know actually how close enemy players might be if you are about to take a fight. At the end of it all though, you gotta constantly be looking around and be self-aware. What is the ring doing this match? Where was that original dropship path? All these little things will tell you where players probably landed and where they're gonna have to rotate to get to the ring. Next up is going to be proper looting and kind of over looting, but also prioritizing what you need versus what you want to have. You might want that purple armor that is in your view off of the drop, but if you don't have a gun yet, there's really no point to getting that armor because you're just going to die 50 shields slower. Likewise, you may feel as if you need a stock, but in reality, you don't really need that stock to perform in a gunfight. A bigger need would be to have a magazine for the gun, as this actually increases the damage output. Of course, having a stock is going to increase your movement a little bit and increase your reload speed, but you don't necessarily need to have that stock. I've mentioned overlooting so much in Apex Legends that I'm a little tired at this point, but the big thing is to save time for what matters. Find out what you need, get that gun, get that mag, maybe an optic, and push those enemies. Apex Legends is a squad game, a trio of players dropping into the match. There is no solo mode, which does mean your squad composition and specifically the team play aspect of Apex Legends is taking the bronze spot on my top 10 tips list. At minimum, every squad needs to be utilizing the ping system. Preferably, you're all going to have a microphone in and you're going to be talking in a civilized manner to each other. But if not, you can be using the ping system. If you do want a few really strong examples of team play for legend combos, here's a few team legend combos that you really need to try out right now. We are seeing this a lot right now, but we got Catalyst, Seer, and Bangalore. Basically, you are able to put up Catalyst's wall and drop some Bangalore smokes, and then you also drop down Seer's ultimate, so you can simply just track players while they more or less can't see anything. Another combo that is a little under the radar these days is going to be Fuse, Loba, and Rampart. This squad is really all about the ranked grind, in my opinion. You have Rampart to better control areas. You got Fuse to continually dish out damage without really having to utilize grenades completely or your gunfire, since he does have the tactical clusters. And then you do have Loba to really just loot up all the loot in an area without really having to move that much. This is definitely more of a defensive passive squad, but it can absolutely work if you are struggling a little bit with surviving. And if you do want another offensive team squad combination, you should look at Valkyrie for her crazy rotations, Pathfinder or Horizon as that entry fragger and assault legend. And then of course, you can have a little support capability in there with Newcastle, who can also defend the squad and really pick them up at a moment's notice. There is so much that does come down to team play in Apex, and it is why there is no solo mode, whether you agree with it or not. Absolutely make the full use of your teammates and play together like your lives depend on it. Second to first is going to be the gun control and training regimen that you do implement in Apex. Even as someone with over 4,000 hours, I find that when I implement a standard training routine to my daily gameplay, I play substantially better than when I don't warm up or train my aim. 3 to 5 minutes is all you need to make a massive difference. If you can't do a 3-minute training routine before you drop into a game, frankly, I think it's just lazy, and it's going to be on you, the player, not taking every aspect of your game as seriously as maybe you should. Here's what I do if you do want to improve your gunplay. I do 1 minute of simple warm-ups by tap firing between the signs in the distance in the firing range. This first minute is really all about just getting my shot down. I want to understand what it feels like to go from target A to target B. So if I am fighting multiple enemies at once, I can go from one enemy and then go straight to that next enemy and hopefully have a little bit more consistency in my shot since I did practice it in the range. Second, this is going to be 1 minute of magging the bots that are moving in a random speed. This helps me get my close range sprays down. Being mega accurate isn't as critical. It's really more about just warming up your overall ability to shoot. For the final minute, I am going to rotate between the previous two things, but I'm also going to add in the moving signs, and I'm going to do some sprays on these signs at like zipline or running speed. This is going to let me get my tracking down to enemies that might be rotating or moving from side to side in the distance. This is going to build overall consistency in my shot. A big disclaimer that I will say is try to use guns that have a little bit more recoil, something like a car at distance or the flatline, as practicing with like an R301 or an R99, which have a low amount of recoil, really isn't quite as good to actually learn how to control a gun. Taking the top spot for what you need to understand the most in Apex Legends is all about just being flexible. The big thing with the previous and right now is that everything that we have talked about is really just being very open to what Apex has to throw at you. If you can be flexible in the weaponry that you are using from game to game, maybe the legend you are using right now in the specific fight might not be the most optimal for that fight, the play strategy that you want to implement, or even just the thought process of how you are approaching the game, you're going to improve at a much faster pace than everyone else that you are playing against. Battle Royales are about action and reaction, and flexibility is going to be key to this. The true goal of every Battle Royale, and specifically Apex Legends, which is a loot-based, RNG-based Battle Royale, is to build consistency. If you can build up all aspects of your game over time, you will be a better player than players that are missing out on a certain aspect of your game. And this remains true from when you are early game dropping to when you are at the end game and maybe you don't have as good of positioning, but you do have that grenade. You can overtake someone because you have a more flexible thought process in how you do approach the game. If you are looking for even more tips to improve and not be a bot, check out this video. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.